What's going on, y'all? It's me, the ninja hidden in the hood. I don't know. Freaking Aaron Animal. And yeah, we back again with the reactions, bro. And guess what? This one is from the homie Sansa. Yeah, we had a cringe stream recently. Like, I was like, find the cringiest stuff. And you know what? The winner, I was like, I'm gonna react to whatever you want right as soon as I possibly can, bro. It's been like a little couple weeks, but you know what? We here, we clear, we have no fear, and we're gonna hop right into this bad boy. I had too much coffee today. This one's called Obereru ReZero Wrath If Story. So freaking Sansa's been showing me like a lot of like videos with like the if stories for ReZero, and like I haven't read the manga, so I don't really know details of the if stories. So you know what, it's like whole backstories. I'm a little interested. I hope you are too. Let's hop in this bad boy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Johnny Life in Another World from Zero. Also, knowing me, I'm probably gonna ask questions throughout.
ReZero is full of moments where the story could have easily
I'm gonna move my body
diverged
up so you guys
onto a
can read
completely
everything too.
different path, and these moments are indicated by Subaru's ideologies being tested.
Right.
In the end, Subaru always seems to overcome his mental conflict and eventually becomes an amazing character.
I'm gonna say something real quick. This story, I think what makes one thing great about ReZero, it ends up being a lot about like mental stability, which is, I mean, let's be real, it's a very common thing now, you know what I mean? So I think a lot of people kind of vibe with that, you know, because like it's not like in your face all the time with the mental stuff going on, but like, I mean, just definitely a couple episodes are really in your face. But you know what I'm saying? It's always like a mental battle, because like if you truly died as much as he did, or whoever just repeatedly died, you're going to go a little crazy, right? So I respect that.
However,
I respect that a lot.
Every year on Subaru's birthday, the author releases a spin-off story explaining what would have happened if Subaru chose the wrong path. Today, we will cover Obereru, the Wrath If story. The story itself contains like 1 or 2 spoilers, but I've decided to make them as vague as humanly possible because I wanted this video to be safe to watch for all the anime onlys out there.
I've already seen season 2 spoilers,
so skipping and glossing over certain details that pertain to spoilers. So I'd like to remind everyone that the only way to get the full experience of this story would be to actually read it yourself. That being said, before we start this narration,
if you guys are watching, we're right now on season 3.
Exactly, Subaru faces the ideological conflict that leads him to this route. As I said before, these potential points of divergence are all indicated by a test. The ending of episode 7 is one of these times where Subaru is being tested. This was the episode where Rem dies from the shaman's curse and Rom tries to kill Subaru for being all suspicious. She chases him outside and prepares to kill him, but Beatrice interferes and offers to protect Subaru. This is the moment where Subaru had a choice to make.
She pissed me off with that one. It was like, bruh, I saved your sister. I'm saving everybody.
He could accept Beatrice's assistance and engage Rom in combat, or he could be patient, jump off the cliff, and simply restart from his last save point. Obviously, Subaru made the right choice. He strengthened his resolve and jumped off the cliff because he was patient enough to keep dying over and over until everyone he cared about was safe.
What a G.
In Obereru, this doesn't happen. Subaru allows himself to be influenced by wrath instead of patience, and it changes the ReZero story entirely. This is Obereru, the Wrath If story. Instead of jumping off the cliff, Subaru accepts Beatrice's offer to protect him from Rom. Subaru escapes into the forest, but eventually Rom catches up with him. The story begins with Subaru's body flailing around on the floor as Rom is choking him to death.
Oh, damn.
Too weak to fight back, Subaru's just about ready to accept his death when suddenly Rom lets go of his neck. Coughing up blood, Subaru realizes that Rom has collapsed from exhaustion. You see, while she was chasing him through the forest, she got attacked by countless demon dogs along the way. The amount of wounds on her body would have normally killed her, but her hatred for Subaru was strong enough to keep her alive. Subaru notes that even with her body covered in cuts and gashes, Rom was still very beautiful, but that didn't matter right now. She was trying to kill him and she failed. Subaru had beaten her. Gazing down at her motionless body, Subaru picks up a large rock with both his hands and lifts it up into the air.
Oh!
The sound of the rock hitting her skull was so loud that it echoed throughout the forest. This marks the first of a long series of violent acts committed by Subaru as he journeys deeper into wrath.
He is a menace. Okay.
The next scene of this chapter takes place 2 years in the future, so before I get to that, let me go ahead and explain everything that's happened since.
God dang it. Sorry. Something popped up.
Subaru continued spiraling out of control down the path of sin and eventually ended up founding a criminal organization called
Al Capone.
In just 2 years, Pleiades had already become infamous throughout the ReZero world, and Subaru's reputation as a villain had spread around as well. Working for Subaru's organization are a number of successful mercenaries, as well as 2 of the strongest characters in all of ReZero. Subaru typically keeps those 2 close at his side for protection, because on his own he's still pretty weak. But as their boss, he's ordered them to murder countless victims, often without reason. They currently reside at the Pleiades headquarters, which is a large castle called Pandemonium. Most of Subaru's days are spent in Pandemonium's reception hall, sitting atop a luxurious throne, but occasionally he would leave Pandemonium if he had some business to take care of elsewhere. The next scene in Obereru takes place at the Roswell mansion. Because Roswell no longer had Rom and Rem, he ended up hiring someone named Frederica. Frederica was briefly shown in Season 1 for about half a second, so if you don't know who Frederica is, she's a demi-human who used to be another one of Roswell's maids back in the day.
Yeah, she was in Season 3. She was in Season 3, I remember her.
Rom and Rem, but
I remember her now.
Despite that, the mansion was never really the same since the day of their passing.
That makes sense.
Rom and Rem were extremely important to Roswell. Rom in particular.
Roswell gives me what's that dude from Hunter x Hunter? Oh my god, dude, I'm literally blanking on it. I know you don't have to tell me the comments. I've seen Hunter x Hunter. I'm just blanking on it right now for whatever his name is. The dude that has all the gum abilities or whatever the hell it is. The weirdo clown dude. Hisoka. I couldn't think about it. That's his. He gives me Hisoka vibes, and I don't like him. I didn't like him from the beginning. And I don't think I ever will.
Was very special to him. Without her, Roswell himself was incomplete. He felt as if his own life had lost all purpose. Many times Frederica tried to cheer him up, but nothing could penetrate Roswell's force field of despair. Puck, on the other hand, was more angry than he was depressed. He believed that the mansion was no longer a safe environment for Amelia, and he was upset with Roswell for allowing that to happen. Puck is currently arguing with Frederica in the hallway, and he starts to badmouth Roswell. This offends Frederica greatly because as a maid, she can't allow someone to insult the owner of the mansion. So in response, Frederica decides to get aggressive with Puck. Obviously, this doesn't end well for Frederica. Before she can even make her first move, Puck turns her into an ice sculpture. Roswell finds Frederica still alive, trying to resist the cold, and feels obligated to save her. He starts charging up a powerful spell when suddenly he just barely manages to dodge the sword slash that was aimed for his neck. The attack was carried out with incredible speed, so Roswell's quick reaction to evade it was remarkable. The voice coming from behind Roswell sounded surprised by the impressive dodge. The assassin was a blue-haired young man with 2 swords at his waist. One scabbard was blue and the other was red. Pausing the narration for just a second, Cecilus is a character that hasn't appeared in the main story other than his name being mentioned, but a lot of people suspect that he might show up in a future arc someday, so technically, information about Cecilus would not be considered a spoiler as of right now, but in a couple years, it could.
I love how he pops the name up like that every time he says Cecilus.
I guess. So I hope none of you are that sensitive to potential spoilers, but I wanted to put a warning out just in case.
I'm super sensitive. Don't hurt my feelings.
The very earliest this character could ever possibly show up in the main story would be around Season 5. So anyway, Cecilus is nicknamed Blue Lightning. He's the highest ranking god general
that makes sense why I don't know him.
Empire, which is the kingdom just south of Lagunica. I'm not going to go too in depth, but he's one of the strongest characters in ReZero, and he attacks with lightning speed, so that's why it was so impressive for Roswell to dodge one of his attacks. Anyway, back to the story. Roswell recognizes the young man, and the 2 of them exchange dialogue, but as they're talking, Roswell realizes his left arm had been cut off in the attack.
Okay, sorry I keep pausing. I just keep having thoughts. Like, with these people being so strong, I again, he didn't say we knew much about Cecilus, right? But my thoughts are like, if he's at least if he's a mercenary or something like that, or even a good guy, mercenary, whatever. Just as long as he's not evil, I'm surprised there's not like a band of people, like I'm talking about like incredibly strong people to band against the witch's cult, specifically. You know what I mean? I know that obviously we have the main characters that are against the witch's cult, but with like these incredibly strong people, like I don't know, I feel like I see that a lot in TV shows. The people who are like the strongest just end up doing like their own thing, just kind of like just willy-nilly, and just be, hey, why don't we all just work together, take this group out, and just live out our life? How about that? But I don't know. Don't answer that question in the comments if it has a spoiler. Thank you.
Without hesitation, he cups the wound with his remaining hand, cauterizing it with a small burst of fire magic. Despite the intense pain, Roswaal's dialogue continues. He suspects that Cecilis must be leading the Valachian army to invade Lagunica, but Cecilis corrects him, explaining that he's actually working for someone else now. Knowing he's about to kill Roswaal anyway, Cecilis decides to tell him the truth. He's been working for someone known as the Purge King.
The Purge
Roswaal
King
grows suspicious and asks for the name of this Purge King. Cecilis hesitates at first, but eventually gives him the answer. At the same time the name left his lips, he cut through Roswaal like a flash of lightning. Roswaal smiled as he heard the name, and then everything went black. His last thought before dying was of the twins that used to be his maids. And with that, Roswaal died unhappy with his desires unfulfilled.
I still don't
Beatrice
like
trembled in fear as she heard a familiar voice. Standing in the doorway, Subaru calmly says hello. His face looked a lot scarier than she remembered, and his manner of speaking now had a blank tone to it. The two of them talk for a bit, and Subaru thanks her for protecting him that day at the edge of the cliff. At the time, Subaru was certain he would die, but because Beatrice didn't give up on him, he was able to survive. Subaru thanks her again, but also asks her the question, why didn't you kill me? Beatrice,
I really hope they have like a spinoff, a show for specifically this. I mean, there's a lot of spinoff shows. Anyways, especially for something so popular as ReZero, it'll be like a disservice not to have a spinoff with the what if stories. You know what I mean? Like, there doesn't have to be a full episode. That doesn't have to be like a full arc with the what if. Maybe like a 2-episode thing. That'll be so dope.
Didn't answer, but silently came to a realization. Subaru understood it too, as he says to her, "You and I, Beatrice, we are the same." Inside Beatrice and inside Subaru, there was a disease called despair quietly nesting. While the two of them were talking, a third person in the room suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It was the wondrous technique of a ninja, being able to hide in the shadows without anyone noticing. He was a shabby-looking wolf human with a pipe hanging out of his mouth. It was clear that he was extremely powerful and far stronger than the frightened Beatrice was. "Hannibal, bring me a sword." Subaru orders the wolf human.
"Don't hurt B."
Subaru takes the blade and walks up to Beatrice with a smile on his face.
What blade is that?
He tells her,
it was like some Elden
"With all
stuff.
those colors you wear, you are very pretty, you know." Beatrice stares at Subaru as she starts to cry. Trembling and shaking, she asks him a strange question that this version of Subaru will never know the meaning of. Perhaps if his life had turned out differently, he would have understood what she was asking him, but regardless, he still tried his best to give her a comforting answer. And then, as her last set of tears hit the floor, Subaru kills Beatrice with his blade.
For what? For what reason? Was that really important for him to do?
So for anyone who didn't understand what just happened, the Roswaal mansion was no longer a safe environment for Amelia to stay in, so Puck and Subaru formed a plan to kill everyone in the mansion and then bring Amelia back to Subaru's castle.
Gotcha.
The two new characters, Cecilis and Hannibal, are Subaru's most trusted allies, so he ordered Cecilis to kill Roswaal and told Hannibal to help him with Beatrice. Everything went according to plan, and they rescued Amelia, and on their way back, they actually took Frederica with them as well, because they needed a maid. Pandemonium was a large building, so there was a lot of work for Frederica to do as the new maid. Not only did she have to cook and clean for everyone, but she also had to clean up the messes Subaru would make. For example, an elderly merchant arrived at Pandemonium to discuss business with the organization, and he made sure to be very polite and delicate with his words, taking care not to offend Subaru. In the end, Subaru appeared to be satisfied with the meeting, but as the merchant was on his way out, Subaru flipped a coin. Tails, he said, and that was the last thing the old man heard before he was decapitated by Hannibal.
Jesus Christ.
Frederica was disgusted by Subaru's actions, and she vocalized her frustration as she disposed of the man's corpse, but Subaru wasn't happy with Frederica's disrespect. So later that night, when she brought him his dinner, he flipped another coin as she was leaving.
Heads,
please. He said. Don't worry, Frederica. Your family is safe for now. Frederica left the room with tears in her eyes, wondering why her life had ended up like this. Subaru's behavior eventually led to his nickname, the Purge King. The Purge King truly was the physical embodiment of fear itself. Just being in the same room as him was enough to make someone physically sick. This is crazy for a person,
oftentimes, for a guy who doesn't have any like legit
the result of a coin flip.
Heads special abilities,
tails they die.
Other than coming back, like
even by one of his own men,
his power is information. Basically, his power is technically
even his
information.
Most trusted allies, Hannibal and Cecilus, would occasionally have their lives threatened. In the deepest part of the building, there was a heavily guarded room that housed Amelia, whom everyone referred to as the Princess. Amelia wasn't allowed to leave the room, and she had no visitors other than when Subaru needed a therapeutic lap pillow, which was about once every 10 days. Stressed about his job, sobbing into Amelia's lap was the only thing that could calm Subaru down. But when Subaru wasn't paying her a visit, she was all alone with Puck for 24 hours a day, and she wasn't sure if she resented Subaru for that. Her previous life was filled with humiliation and helplessness. She dropped out of the royal selection after Ram and Rem died and abandoned her dream of creating a world without discrimination. Amelia had become depressed living at the Roswell mansion, until Subaru rescued her and brought her back to live with him at Pandemonium. Now she spends her life locked in a cage, with plenty of time to wonder if her new life is preferable to her old one.
No.
Now remember, Roswell was a pretty important person in Lugunica, so news of his death spread all over the place once it went public, and it became clear to everyone that the Purge King was the one responsible for it. So the Kingdom of Lugunica decides to deploy a group of knights to Pandemonium and finally put an end to the Pleiades organization.
That sounds like a bad idea.
In the middle of Pandemonium's reception hall, a blinding light swallowed the entire room and then shattered. 18 of Subaru's men were vaporized by the attack, and the structure of the building began to collapse. This was but a single blow from none other than the Sword Saint himself.
I'm not surprised. I figured.
Lugunica was desperate to subjugate the villainous Purge King, so they had no choice but to send Reinhard van Estrella to complete the task. As the dust clears, Reinhard is surprised to find Subaru unharmed, sitting on his throne with Hannibal and Cecilus at his side. I saw your attack once before at the loot house, so I've had plenty of time to prepare for it, Subaru says with a smile. Reinhard hadn't realized until now that the Purge King was Natsuki Subaru, so this was a shock to him. Already bored of Reinhard, Subaru decides to let Cecilus deal with him on his own. Hannibal grabs Subaru, and the two of them escape into the shadows together. Left alone in the room with Cecilus, Reinhard tries to reason with him. In the past, Reinhard has beaten Cecilus once before, but Cecilus didn't care. Defeating Reinhard was his only desire, and today he was ready to fight him to the death. He reaches down to his waist and draws both of his katanas, naming them as he does so: the Fiend Sword and the Dream Sword.
Who is the strongest
swords of power?
Okay, third season, okay, guys.
Reinhard does the same with his own weapon.
As of right now,
Dragon Sword.
Who
Hearing the sound of that
is the strongest character? Okay,
there
minus
was no
the witches.
Mistake that it was in fact the legendary Dragon Sword carried by the Sword Saint, only to be unsheathed when faced with a worthy opponent. Obviously, the sword considered Cecilus a worthy opponent. Cecilus gives his name, and the battle commences. Amelia could feel the tremors echoing inside her room. "This is the end, Leah. Reinhard is here to kill Subaru," Puck tells her. The earthquakes from the epic battle had broken Amelia's door, allowing her to leave her room for the first time ever.
Yeah, get out of there.
I wonder how long she was.
Searching
for Subaru, but after a while, she runs into Reinhard instead. She's a bit shocked by his appearance. Reinhard looked incredibly weakened, and his entire body was covered in dripping wounds. Equally as surprising, he was also holding the dragon sword in his hand. Reinhard didn't have much time to talk, so he quickly urges Amelia to get outside as they had a dragon carriage waiting to bring her back to Lugunica. But Amelia didn't want to leave. She had already made up her mind, and she was staying here with Subaru no matter what.
Interesting.
Still, Reinhard begs her to leave the building immediately when suddenly a sword of ice pierces clean through his abdomen, making him cough up blood and fall to his knees.
A sword of ice? Was that
Reinhard
Puck?
and Emilia were shocked at what just occurred. Reinhard was supposed to have divine protections that should have blocked the attack, but because Emilia did it unconsciously, Reinhard's blessings couldn't detect it.
Oh, she did
it. Emilia unconsciously created an ice sword and stuck it through Reinhard. Realizing this, Emilia started to understand. It was because Reinhard's existence was a threat to Subaru, so stabbing Reinhard was her unconscious mind attempting to protect Subaru. "Please, Reinhard, leave Subaru alone," Emilia says,
sad,
to which Reinhard replies, "That is not possible." Realizing she has no choice but to fight the Sword Saint, Emilia calls for Puck to help her out. Puck appears and unleashes a gust of wind that freezes the air, forcing Reinhard to jump backwards. With one last attempt at negotiation, Reinhard informs Emilia that Subaru had been responsible for over 126,000 deaths. Emilia wasn't aware of any of this, but it didn't matter. She wasn't going to give up on Subaru no matter what. Reinhard stands and gives his name. And then Emilia gives hers as well. The Witch of Glaciation, the Beast of the Apocalypse, and the Sword Saint began their battle, and the uppermost floor of Pandemonium was destroyed by a white shockwave. As Subaru runs through the collapsing mansion, he's attacked by Frederica, but Hannibal shoves her against the wall with such force that it breaks her arm. Subaru decides to spare her life, and he dismisses Hannibal as well. It was clear that the Pleiades organization was ending before his eyes, so Subaru encourages Hannibal to leave the castle and continue his life somewhere else.
His only
Subaru thanks him and says goodbye, and then continues through the mansion on his own. Suddenly, he hears Emilia's voice, which confuses him as she was supposed to be locked in her room on the...
In all these what-if stories, does Subaru still have the ability to return by death? Is that still a thing? I don't know if that like turns off. You know what I mean? Like that he didn't say that in the video so far. Maybe he said it at the end. I'm not sure.
Opposite side of the building. At this point, that's unclear what happened
that I would like
with
to
Puck
know.
and Reinhard, but Emilia is still alive with minimal injuries. She runs up and hugs Subaru and begs him to run away with her.
Yes,
she explains that she did resent him at first for what he did to her, but it didn't matter anymore. Even after she learned of all the evil acts
she got Stockholm syndrome, bro.
Emilia had forgiven him for all of it. And something about that made Subaru distrust her. How could anyone forgive him for all of the horrible things he's done? It's impossible, he thought. Subaru shoves her across the hallway and calls her a liar. All his other thoughts disappeared, and everything in his head was suddenly replaced with fear. As Subaru watches in horror, Emilia's color slowly fades to gray. He starts to scream in agony as Emilia's silver hair and amethyst eyes turn to black and white. So this was a detail I chose not to include in the summary until now, but basically at some point early on in the story, Subaru lost the ability to see color. Everything was black and white except for a few people. Remember what he says to Beatrice before he kills her? "With all those colors you wear, you are very pretty, you know." Beatrice was one of the only things left in the world that still had color for Subaru.
Why?
Everything else that was black and white, he considered a lie. Even Hannibal and
this reminds me of
black and white.
What's that
Reinhard,
one
he expected to at least have a hint of color, but no. He was black and white as well. They were all fake to Subaru. The only people that still had their color were Beatrice and Emilia.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't
Subaru killed Beatrice, and now Emilia had just lost her color. So now the entire world was black and white for Subaru. Well, almost the entire world.
Was it
there
blood?
Was
you can see blood?
One person that still had their color. One last opportunity for Subaru to see something other than black and white. One last thing Subaru could trust. So Subaru leaves Emilia behind and starts running through the building. He was running to the one person he could still trust, the only person he had left.
The witch?
It felt like he was drowning, and they were the only thing he could grab onto. Subaru finally reaches his personal office. This room was just about as heavily guarded as Emilia's room, and that was because it contained something just as important. The office had a secret room attached. Behind the bookshelf, there was a door that could only be opened by Subaru. He slowly presses it open. Behind the door rings the sound of chains connected to the wall. Then he saw it. Her eyes were the color of blood. "Are you ready to die, Barusu?" The pink-haired woman, with hatred in her eyes, looked up at Subaru and smiled. The end. So, the maids killing Subaru in the Roswell mansion ended up traumatizing him, giving him extreme trust issues that basically ruined his life. He became a monster who the entire world was scared of, but deep down, Subaru was the one who was actually scared. He'd have panic attacks and would often self-harm to calm himself down. Subaru's trust issues eventually led to his vision being limited to black and white. The few people he trusted would retain their color, but eventually, Rom was the only one left. All she had was hatred for Subaru, but in the end, that very hatred was the only thing Subaru could trust. And remember, this was all the result of Subaru not wanting to jump off the cliff and simply restart the loop.
Kind of wild that she survived him smashing her head with a rock, bro.
And if Subaru had understood that, then he would have been able to save Rom and Rem, and more importantly, himself. Anyway, there's a lot of information we got from this story, so I'm gonna start with Cecilis and Hannibal, two of the strongest characters in ReZero who hopefully will one day appear in the main story.
I hope so.
Hannibal isn't as strong as Cecilis, but that's because he's a ninja character. Anywhere you see a shadow, Hannibal could be hiding in it and no one would know. He's an excellent assassin, but if you put him out in an open field, he's not going to be as effective as Cecilis would.
Makes sense.
So how exactly did Subaru manage to recruit two of the strongest characters in ReZero? Well, at least for Hannibal, it was because of Return by Death. Remember that from an outsider's perspective, Subaru would appear to be either extremely lucky or some kind of genius. Hannibal picked up on this and started noticing Subaru's odd predictions. He appeared to have some sort of gift. Whether it was an actual ability or just incredible insight didn't really matter. The point was, Hannibal learned to trust and value Subaru's judgment. Now, Cecilis, on the other hand, would consider using Return by Death a cowardly tactic, as he believes that preparation is for the weak. Cecilis had actually been loyal to the Empire the entire time. The Emperor himself, his name's Vincent, he's actually the one that told Cecilis to go work for Subaru. And by the way, to put Cecilis's power into perspective, the author actually confirmed that if Reinhard were to have a fight with the sun, Reinhard would win. He would win a fight with the sun. And yet, Cecilis was able to inflict pretty significant damage to him. He was able to damage Reinhard. He was worthy of the Dragon Sword Reed, and he was able to kill Roswell almost instantly. I think that alone speaks for how strong Cecilis really is. But in the end, Reinhard still defeated him, and then got stabbed by Amelia.
Nice.
Now that was weird. Yes,
Nice.
Amelia stabbed Reinhard.
Good old Amelia.
Because Amelia wasn't consciously aware of her actions, Reinhardt's divine protections couldn't stop her attack. This was the first time we've ever heard of a potential weakness that Reinhardt might have. And just for anyone that was wondering, it was never stated whether or not Amelia and Puck were worthy of the Dragon Sword. It was Cecilis that was worthy, and Reinhardt just never put it back away after he drew it. So that's why he was able to use it against Puck and Amelia, which, by the way, the conclusion of that fight isn't known either. All we know is that Amelia survived. I'm assuming that Amelia let Puck face Reinhard alone while she went to look for Subaru, but who knows, maybe they killed him. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. My personal guess is that Reinhard won, but that's just me. Another thing, Amelia was
to be honest with you, it doesn't matter.
That's the Witch of Glaciation, and I do think that title is very badass, but I don't think it really means anything.
Because the end result wasn't be the same.
To Amelia as one of the literal witches of sin, because obviously ice isn't a sin, so let's not get too excited about that.
Agreed.
The last part I want to talk about is the ending. We kind of got left with a cliffhanger, but I think it's obvious that Rom ends up killing Subaru. Now what happens after that, we can only speculate. Does Subaru die a permanent death, or does he use Return by Death? And if so, where does he return to? My guess is that he does die a permanent death, but I would like to hear your thoughts.
This man's
in the
just
comments
sad,
below.
bro.
I do read all of them, by the way. I really enjoyed this If story. It's been so long since I read Obereru the first time. I think I forgot how good it actually was. The new characters were amazing. We got some nice world building and a bunch of interesting information.
Just sad, bro.
The story itself was very well written, especially in terms of thematic significance.
This is just like
and
final
once
thoughts.
again, guys, the only way to get the full experience would be to read the story yourself.
Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Yeah, man, Subaru just yo, these, I mean, he's a sad character even in the main story, bro, just what he's dealing with, but like, Jesus Christ, I don't know, with how Subaru is with his convictions, like, I love the side stories based off like lore, just like, you know, story wise, but I feel like even if he were to have fought Ram and lost his they lost coloring, got lost just trust issues. I don't know, it's hard for me to see like him being that evil. I don't know, it sounds weird, especially with all the stuff he's did, with all the stuff that he's gone through, but it's just hard for me to like see him that evil, like at least to that extent. I can see him being like a leader of like some group, like have Hannibal and Cecilus with him, but I can't. It's hard for me to see him just killing all like almost 130,000 people. I don't know. It doesn't matter because that's what I think. That's not what actually happened. What actually happened, obviously, way different. Man, that was crazy. That's a good story. That's definitely a good story. But it's not over yet. We got one more video that Sansa sent over. All right, we got a little short one. This is ReZero. Just if it is still Obereru. I'm sorry. Did I sound racist? I apologize. I think this is actually just a straight up AMV. So you know what? Let's hop this bad boy. Oh, it's very low. Oh no, there we go. Okay, interesting music choice. Okay. I'm not after watching that whole thing or watching the whole thing. I'm paying attention to the coloring of everybody and stuff like that. Okay, that's pretty cool. I can't lie. Yeah, man, like Rem is like slightly blue. Wait, what? She still has some color. She has a little bit of color in her hair. But that could just be like the filter over top too. Interesting. Yeah, man, I'll just back to black and white. I mean, to be honest with you, like, it could be just black and white just because it's the manga. But I like to think it's part of the story, part of the what if story. Especially this part. Oh, Subaru. I couldn't do it, man. This man going through too much. This man going through too much. I don't want no part of that. I want to part out. All right. I appreciate y'all for watching. That was pretty clean. I don't really have any final thoughts because I kind of put all my thoughts in the video already. I guess my main thing is like, look, I just want to see every single like what if animated. I know they don't have, there's not what ifs for every single sin that he's had. You know what I mean? But that's so clean. That's so clean. I don't know. You know what's also would be interesting if they not only did a what if for the sins, but because I mean that's the main part of the show is that you know each archbishop is based off a sin. But what if they did the stages of grief for him? as like a side story too. That would be interesting. That would be really interesting. That would be a really weird take on stages of grief. I mean, I feel like he goes through them every single episode anyway, but yo, just, food for thought. That's all. Obviously I don't think it's gonna happen, but I think it'd be kind of cool. But I appreciate y'all. You guys are dope. Go hug your family. I hope you have a great holiday season, bro. Get some good presents, eat some good food, and I'll see you on the next one. All right. Deuces.